afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I would like the commissioners, starting from my left, to introduce themselves. Michael Rendino,
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Alan Shulkin, Manhattan Democrat.
John Plateau, Kings County Democrat.
Bianca Perez, Bronx Democrat.
Michael Michelle, Republican, please vote.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Dawn Santos, Deputy Executive Director.
Pamela Perkins, Administrative Manager. Georgia Gonzalez, Operations Manager.
Nina M. Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Kenneth Moulton, Council for Commissioners.
Stephen Danford, Council for Commissioner.
Steve Richmond, General Counsel.
Rafael Savino, Deputy General Counsel.
Well, welcome everybody. On the agenda today, we have the minutes from January 20th. Has everybody read them? Second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. Michael?
Okay, item number 2A is a report on the Election Commissioners Association Winter Conference that was held on January 12, 2015 through January 15, 2015 in Albany. We had several staff members attend, myself, Mr. Richmond, who moderated a panel. Mr. Savino attended from General Counsel's office. Ms. Vasella, Mr. O'Grady, Mr. Ferguson. Anybody I'm missing? Mr. Nordis. Oh, I spoke to him this morning about this. Of course, most recent guy I spoke to and I forgot about it. As well as Commissioner Shulkin and Commissioner Flateau. I don't think any other commissioners attended. But in any event, lead-off item on that was Mr. Richmond moderated a panel that discussed the role of the new enforcement council at the State Board of Elections. My understanding is, as I did not attend, I was attending the business here when that was going on, but my understanding is that it was basically an opportunity for Enforcement Counsel Lisa Sugarman to introduce herself and to describe her role. Mr. Richmond, if you would, and I'm not being cheeky because I'm usually the biggest defender, but if you could briefly describe exactly right.
Yes, Commissioner.
Old pot, this is kettle.
It was a combination of both discussing the new changes that the budget of 2014-15 made, setting up the independent enforcement unit, their role and interrelationship with the local boards as well. This was really, Lisa Sugarman started on September 1st. This was her first chance to speak to the full board. She gave a PowerPoint presentation outlining her responsibilities and how she expects to interact both with the new compliance unit at the state board, which will be remains the principal point of contact for all the filers, and the continuing responsibilities among the local boards for filers who now, new and current filers, spending or raising less than $1,000, and the legacy filers. And so we covered that. Commissioner Roger Sierra from Saratoga and Ralph Moore of Erie County joined me. We talked about other types of enforcement actions relating to other provisions of the election law that they've encountered, and they had similar experiences that we've had, that when making referrals usually to a DA or law enforcement agency, the outcomes are usually muddled at best. And Ms. Sugarman made clear that she views her principal role is with regard to campaign finance reporting and enforcement of those rules, and that's where she's going to be focusing on. But she was reminding the local boards that there are obligations to continue under the election law, because only certain provisions of Article 14 were changed somewhere. And she was supposed to be, and I don't know if she did, send the presentation, the PowerPoint, out as a PDF. If we get that, we'll share that as well. And there's also supposed to be a guidance memo coming from the expanded State Board Counsel's office as to the other responsibilities. That's the other function. The previous enforcement council staff, that when they were part of the state board, Bill McCann, they've moved over, so now you have two councils to the state board, a Democrat and a Republican, and two deputies. Bill McCann took the Republican deputy, and Brian Quayle, who was the Schenectady Council Commissioner, and before that, counsel to the Assembly Law Commissioner, and Assembly Law, Election Law Committee, became now the other deputy counsel to join Kathleen O'Keefe and Kim Galvin. So there's an expanded staff there. They also have an expanded compliance unit, and like all other boards, they're in the process of changing the website, trying to make it more user-friendly, etc. And they were hoping for some fresh money in the governor's budget, which doesn't seem to be, at least in the draft budget, there doesn't seem to be any new money. That's a quick summary.
Okay.
All right, some of the other issues that came up at the conference were whole site privacy issues. Again, no new ground was broken on this. It was pretty much a rehash of many of the things that we already know and experience, and there was a reminder to have voters use the privacy sleeves and to try to deal with those issues through the training process as well. One suggestion that has come up, which we're going to take a look at, but does off the bat present some potential challenges. There's a suggestion that we should take the scanner machines and turn that booth toward a wall, so that it's not facing the center of the room, so that when people are approaching the scanner, there's less of an opportunity to look at it. A couple of the things is, the challenges that we always face with these kinds of things are, where are the electric outlets in relation to the scanner? Is the cord going to be long enough for us to leave the 5-foot setback, from the wall? Those kinds of things. And then, depending on how it lays out, is there going to be some type of matting or something that we need to put over the cord to make sure that A, people don't trip on it, or that those wheelchair users that come to vote can traverse behind the series of machines without a problem. I mean, so those are some of the things. But realistically speaking, the privacy issues that were raised were nothing that we don't already know. It's just basically a reconversation about things that have already been discussed in the past. The other thing that was an issue was list maintenance, and some of the issues with the NCOA, the National Change of Address, and how that working with the post office and the postmaster general, the local postmaster, is important. There were some counties that raised the issue of not wanting to participate in NCOA and thinking that we didn't have to do it. Ms. Spizzero from the State Board of Elections was very adamant that it was a requirement of the law, and that if you wanted to be a Board of Elections that complied with the law, that you needed to continue to pay attention to the NCOA and fulfill the requirements under those circumstances. So then the user group, the ES&S user group, which we participated in, I'm waiting for additional information from ES&S, and I believe I actually received the email yesterday, a rather detailed email on one maintenance with respect to the hardware, but we also have to have a discussion with respect to the software. ES&S moving forward will be giving us maintenance on the software they will charge for maintenance on the software that will include the upgrades for the software. For those counties or jurisdictions that do not elect to pay for the maintenance, they will not get the upgrades. So the sea change, if you will, what I wanted the takeaway for the commissioners to be here is that the State Board of Elections seems to be poised to allow certain jurisdictions for funding reasons to purchase the maintenance and therefore get the upgrades. And to those jurisdictions that do not want to pay for the maintenance and do not get the upgrades, to allow them to continue to operate on their software as presently situated.
Doesn't that raise equal protection? You know, some people are voting on machines with enhanced software, and other people are voting on machines that don't have enhanced software. Isn't that potentially an issue that we're all going to be facing with these clever election lawyers coming down saying that we should have won for one reason or another?
Well, I will say this. I chose my words carefully when I indicated that it represented a sea change. And I will acknowledge that all of the potential ramifications have not been discussed and or researched to determine what arguments could be raised by people who think that likes should be treated alike. So I would say certainly the question that Commissioner Humane, as is per usual, you raise a good and valid question. Whether or not anyone in this room presently has an answer to that good and valid question is something else altogether.
The only thing, Commissioner, we can give you guidance is that the Dominion system hasn't made all the changes ESS does. For example, Dominion will not service Bengali right now because they were not requested by anybody to do it. So there has been within the election systems in use of the city, there are some.
But since the only people who have to vote in Bengali are within the city, then we don't have Dominion, so that's, you know.
So there have been occasions when not all the change. The question would be, I think, if there was a change in state law mandating a change in the system applicable to everyone, what would happen?
No,
As
for
opposed
example,
to
what I'm
a
talking
bells and
about
whistle request.
is the number of pixels in the circle. If the newer system is more sensitive, it may pick up some votes that somebody else. I can go on.
Yeah,
I know, and like I said, you know, these are good and legitimate questions. I think that in the past, since Mr. Richmond raised the issue of Bengali, the state in the past required all of the jurisdictions that used the ES&S machines to upgrade the system to include Bengali, even many jurisdictions that don't have any need to upgrade for Bengali. And now the feedback, at least that we've got, is that they are prepared to pull back from that universal mandate. The question that I don't think anybody can answer right this minute is, how far back are they going to pull? In other words, we're all right here. Some jurisdictions will progress with their upgrades. How far ahead can somebody else get if they pay for the upgrades before it creates a problem, you know, for everyone? And I don't think we have an answer to that question. And the other thing, as I spoke to Mr. Nordis about today to try to get some type of rudimentary understanding about the technology issues that will be confronted. The way that I was able to capture it, he said, yes, it's accurate, so that it allows me to explain it, is if we go with an interim upgrade, so let's say we're at a version, you know, 5.0 and we're going to 5.5, it's not going to be this comprehensive upgrade. That would be akin to adding a room on a house. But if we're going to go to 6.0, that's akin to adding a floor to the house. So how many floors can you build on top and not extend the footprint on the interim solution before you create a problem? And those are, you know, kind of evolutionary questions in nature, but they are certainly something to bear watching. And these kinds of discussions, once I get, you know, some final numbers about what the cost of participating in the, you know, in the maintenance program would be, these are all questions that we're going to have asked and answered. And I think at that juncture, what would be a valuable exercise would be to bring, you know, real tech people in from ES&S to give a presentation to the commissioners.
On a preliminary level, does ES&S have any planned upgrades that might fall into this, so you can give us an example?
Well, since I've been here, the way the upgrades have occurred are basically on request. You know, they make some of their own stuff if they find, you know, some bugs in the system, but it's user-based, where we say, hey, you know, we need this change, and then they work on developing it. But one thing that I could see as a potential problem is if there is a en masse number of jurisdictions that do not participate in the maintenance. do we then run the risk, and I think these are questions that we have to have not only here, but with the state board as well, do we run the risk of throwing cold water on ES&S's incentive to do their own research and development and continue to improve the system? Those are practical questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, and obviously, when we get the numbers, we're gonna have to submit those numbers to Office of Budget Management, all of that, to try and get the
Right, I mean-
rates. And hopefully, we can all speak, at least I will speak to
Right.
my extensive city council membership, that, to try and get both the mayor and the city council to approve the extra money to get the upgrades. And my understanding was that we had a meeting usually once a year with ES&S where we would make suggestions to them for upgrades, and that we would get those upgrades.
Right, and that was part of that, you know, what's happening here is that original 5-year contract is sunsetting. And so now we're moving into the next phase. And from, you know, what I've been told by our staff, you know, principally Mr. Nordis, is that where we stand now in terms of the operability of the system from a software perspective in 2015 is vastly improved over where we stood in 2010. And so I would imagine that that in the passage of time, things will continue, you know, to improve, and the question then becomes, we talk about upgrades like as if you're going from, you know, from a Prius to a Mercedes. You know, that's not the way these upgrades are. I mean, this is really, how can we keep, you know, the system chugging along and chugging along properly?
Do we have the capability to do some of this work ourselves? And if we do, would that impact whatever warranties are remaining under the?
On the hardware side, yes. On the software side, no. And so when we're talking about maintenance, we have to separate, you know, not only for the purposes of argument, but for practicality, you have to separate software you know, maintenance versus maintaining the machines and the springs and the rollers and all that other stuff. So those two things need to be kept, you know, separate and apart. So yes, on the machine maintenance side of it, I have asked them, ES&S, to, and this is the email they sent me, it was either Friday or Monday, that I need to review in detail, and we'll be coming back to the commissioners on that piece of it, to say, to develop a training series of classes that will allow our techs to, you know, VMTs, to be a level 1, and then after a certain period of time in their position, you know, take an exam which will include written and practical to go to level 2, and then ultimately a level 3 would be somebody that can do all of the work, maintenance work associated with the machine that ES&S folks help us with in and around election time. So that is occurring on a separate but parallel track. But in terms of the software, it's proprietary software. Their code lines are their code lines. They own them. They're not giving them up. It's part of the contract, and you know, we'll either remain status quo and stay where we are, or we'll participate in the maintenance program, subject ultimately to much more detailed information than we're doing here today, and Commissioner decision.
Last question. An upgrade like reading the writing quotes, let's call that a, you know, bell and whistle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the adjustment to the reader and tracking sensor, we'll call that more important and affects the voting experience.
Right.
When we made the request for the write-in reading, does the whole state now upgrade their software under the plan, or is it just us?
Well, that occurred in December of 2012, so this is still one of those few things I get to say now that it happened before I got here. But the way those things work, the way it worked under that scenario was once the state board certifies the new version, then it became everybody's. But under those circumstances, all of those jurisdictions are operating under the current contract, which is about to sunset. So that's why I'm bringing it up now, because it came up, you know, it came up You know, and you know what, if you were at, you know, for those of us that were at the conference, it was almost a subtle, almost a throwaway conversation. And then, you know, I remember Rafe was sitting there, and John Norris was sitting there, and then we started looking at each other, wait a second, did they just say what we think they said, which is, you know, and then Mr. Savino, who was it that was in the room when the question, I believe there was somebody from the State Board that was in the room that when the question was posed to ultimately, right?
Bob Alexander.
Right, okay, yeah.
Who is working on Anna's staff in the election operation.
Right, so, and again, that conversation was in a, you know, quasi-public, you know, Bob Warren, you know, it was in a quasi-public setting in that, you know, all the counties that chose to be there were represented, but we don't have a definitive statement from the State Board just yet either. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there today for the commissioners to consider, to chew on it a little bit, and then, you know, we'll get more information from the State Board.
Could electronic poll books be on the menu of upgrades going forward?
Yeah, first, right now, my understanding is, and you know, Mr. Savino and Mr. Richmond can jump in on this, my understanding is that there, it would be a statutory amendment that would be required in order for electronic poll books to be utilized. But as I've been want to say with respect to these kinds of advancements, you know, to paraphrase, you know, the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. They will come at some point. I mean, but it's the at some point that's always going to be an issue, and I think those conversations have to be had at a much higher level than, no disrespect to anybody in this august body, but a much higher level than the folks of us sitting here today.
I can understand the policy decision, right, needing to get in place, but my understanding, when I attended that conference, I was talking to some of their staff, yes, I believe they already have some electronic poll book jurisdictions in play.
Right.
So I'm saying, so there's two levels there. There's a technical level, I'm just asking, because that's what you're talking about.
Right.
Upgrades, maintenance,
And
how it's going to handle that. Notwithstanding that, it'll have to be the legislature and the
No, they
governor
don't-
to amend the election law for, what is that what I'm hearing, in order
Right, I'm
for
assuming
jurisdiction to be able to formally proceed with that.
Yeah, they have it, they probably have it in other states and all, but in New York State, they
City
can't.
of Chicago.
Right, but they have, the state has to first okay it before we can.
Right.
And then certified.
It's certified, so it's a couple of years.
You know, so in terms of the process, we would have to have the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate coalesce around a reconciled bill that would allow for the use of it, and then the governor, whichever governor may be governor at the time that this coalescence happens, would have to sign it, and then ultimately, there'd have to be a presentation with respect to a particular, and I want to be clear so that we don't run afoul of anything. ES&S is not the only company that has electronic poll books. There are many vendors out there that have them, and right, so you know, it would be part of an RFP process, and then the question becomes, is it going to be an electronic poll book? In other words, a standalone piece of equipment that serves only as an electronic poll book? Or is it going to be software licenses that allow for the use of other tablet devices already, you know, in deployment to be used, you know, for multiple purposes, whether it be electronic poll book or, you know, Street Finder or all that kind of
Or
stuff.
integrated with.
Or integrated with the existing system, correct. So I mean, you know, there's an old Irish saying, and my father was fond of saying it, it's a long way from the lip to the cup, laddie. So right now the cup is on the table, and we haven't begun to lift it yet. Yep, that's on that. So now, lest I run afoul of Ms. Sandow, February 19th is the meeting date scheduled for the adoption of the new voter registration form, which will include the amendments and all of the additional parties. So that's when we expect the State Board to vote on that form, And then the real process will begin because the translations will have to occur, et cetera, et cetera. So we're still a little bit of ways away from an actual new voter registration form. But it's coming, and as soon as the state board does its work, we'll be right behind it to make sure that it gets done as quickly as possible. 2B. I thought I was setting you up there, Commissioner.
I'm trying to keep you moving.
All right.
It's hard. I don't need to get into Shakespeare, but if you want. That's how they did it already.
No, 2B was, I was on a panel last week, January 28th at New York Law School. Basically, it was a panel discussion really to discuss the Presidential Commission report from last year, 2014, and give kind of like an update, say a state of the Board of Elections statement, and really, where to open it up to questions and answers about where we think we are moving forward in terms of advancements. So we talked about the pilot project that we did with tablets. We talked about some of the list maintenance issues that we have in terms of technology and where we think we're going to be with that moving forward. And I believe there was one periodical that reported out as if a statement was made with respect to online voting. Not online voting, apparently, online voter registration. And the fact of the matter is, I didn't make a statement with respect to online voter registration. What I simply discussed was what we already have in place, which is, that you can access a voter registration form online. However, as it stands, and Mr. Richmond, you always, don't always feel free to correct me. I'm inviting you to correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But the only, as far as I know, the only custodial agency for the purposes of signatures in New York State is the State Department of Motor Vehicles. So even if, where they capture what we call the wet signature. So even if people want to go online and fill out a form and print it up, they still have to return that form to us with their signature on it, which would then still go through the same exact process that we do now if somebody picks up a form at the bank or at the post office or comes into our office and fills it out. So there is no major advancement on that issue, and where it would help us though if people would do that more. One is if you went online and you filled it out, and we did it as a fillable PDF, right? The issues with the vagaries of people's handwriting, so when the data entry got done, it would be a lot more quick. And then moving forward down the road, if we can import that PDF into our system, then all we have to do at that point is clip the signature and put the signature in after the bipartisan, and that's the key. After the bipartisan review is done, that piece of the process is not changing. There is no such thing as automatic registration. The gateway to registration is the signature. The gateway to registration will remain the signature unless and until New York State Legislature decides to either enhance or relax that requirement. But we certainly have no intention of doing anything other than following the process as we understand it in terms of the law. So I think there were several staff members there. Mr. Ferguson was definitely there, Mr. Savino was there, and Commissioner Shulkin was there. I thought the panel went pretty well, but when you're up there on a panel, it always seems like it's going quicker. Probably like these meetings when I mean, that's, I think, I'm good unless anybody has any questions.
Has anybody, the public, signed up to speak? Would anybody like to say something?
I'd just like to welcome the newest member of our executive staff, Georgia Casamanis. Welcome, she's been on staff since last week, and I understand so far so good. And we look forward to doing a lot of good hard work with you and a great future ahead. Thank you.
And
executive session.
You asked twice, and now we got Kate.
It's just a question.
Hurry it up.
Hurry it up.
Oh, sorry,
That's what I'm waiting.
Sorry, Kate Doran, League of Women Voters. Last week I asked Valerie about how we could find the notices about the various committee meetings, and she said go to news on the website, and I haven't seen anything, so I don't know. It's just there haven't been any meetings planned, is that?
No, as of now, no committees have set up any meetings.
Okay.
As soon as the committee set it up, it will be on the website.
Under news.
Under news.
Under news, and that's on the homepage?
That's correct.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I make a comment on write-ins?
You just made it.
Yes. Okay, Nunzio, Eleanor. Alan Flax, F-L-A-C-K-S. I would like to add something about my issue on write-ins. I understand that the Honorable Counsel Stephen Howard Richmond cited some points of the election law which were repealed, but more importantly, I still maintain, and we are going to pursue this, Uncle Mort and I, on the issue that you must do all the write-ins, even if you say unattributable, like Donald Duck. You have to do it, and you're not in compliance with the feds, and certainly not the state election law.
Okay.
I want to get that on the record so that you have actual and constructive notice of it.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing before us, we're going to executive session. For anybody that has to leave, the next meeting will be February 17th at 1:30. Thank you for coming.
If you do it on the 14th on Valentine's Day,
Personnel, yeah.
I'm waiting.
All right. The following items were voted on in executive session. The first one, actually both of them were voted unanimously by all commissioners in attendance. The commissioners have voted to make $20,000 per commissioner available upon the discretion of each commissioner on an annualized basis for merit pay, $20,000 per commissioner per borough. So that's item number one. Item number two is pursuant to election law section, the powers vested in the commissioners pursuant to election law section 3-218 subdivision 2, Nina Crispino and Amanda Baronato are being granted the authority to administer oaths on behalf of the board, limited to their official capacity in the Office of Personnel. That concludes the voting, and as I said, both votes were unanimous.
Can I have a motion to
We'll adjourn our next meeting in 2 weeks
on the 17th? Thank you, everybody.